How do you not dance? I guess if you're sitting in the car, it's hard. But you can do arm dance, body dance. 860-522-9842. We'll take more calls in a few minutes, but joining us now is Representative Rob Sampson from Wolcott, and he is running for the state Senate seat currently held by Joe Markley, who's running for Lieutenant Governor. Republicans, the both of them. Rob, welcome back to WTIC. How are you?
I am great. It's always my pleasure, Todd.
And you are the head of the Conservative Caucus.
Indeed.
So this is you'll have to give up that wonderful post as you ascend into the Senate.
Actually, no. I mean, the Conservative Caucus covers the entire legislature, Republicans and Democrats.
Oh, it does.
Sad to say that there are only Republicans as members currently, 9 members of the House, 1 member of the Senate, Senator Joe Markley, who you just mentioned. So I'm hoping to at least maintain my membership in the Conservative Caucus as I ascend to the Senate, but I think there's a good chance I may stay as chairman as well.
So as head of the Conservative Caucus, I assume that you are very excited about the governor's proposal for tolls and a gas tax hike and for a tire tax, and so I wanted to get your support on the record for the governor's plan.
Yes, you're not going to have that, although I will tell you I've got a great deal of satisfaction listening to you on the radio the past couple of days, making a tremendous amount of hay over the issue, which I think is wonderful. I think that it's a miscalculation on the part of the Democrats, and that they think that people in this state are going to buy into the argument that it's because our roads and bridges need fixed that they are looking for money. And I think that they've outsmarted us one too many times, and people have caught on and realized full well that that's not what they're going to do with this money, and that's not the issue at all.
Well, it will go into a lockbox, right, that will guarantee it would only be spent on road construction? Sure,
and that lockbox is much like a sunset. It's a creation of wordsmithing only. It has nothing to do with reality. The legislature, if it can create legislation that creates a lockbox, it can certainly uncreate such a lockbox. So you cannot tie your own hands, and any argument that somehow the money is going to be put away safely and only used for that purpose is a misguided argument. And
well, wait a second.
Believe it.
Rob, if they can undo a lockbox, why can't they undo a tax that was only supposed to be temporary in the first place?
Yeah, well, they could. If you put the right people in charge, they just might do it.
So it is physically possible. They just refuse.
And of course. What's really interesting is, I enjoy listening to many of your listeners calling in and making recommendations, and I think that they have great ideas. The only thing that they should keep in mind is that I hate to cast aspersions on any of my colleagues in either party, but a lot of people assume that the people in government are trying to find solutions to benefit the state. And indeed, there are some, like myself and Senator Markley and many, many other good folks that are trying to do that. But there are also plenty of people that are there for completely different reasons. And they are there to benefit their own political careers and futures. And they write policy for that express purpose. The creation of tolls is nothing more than a mechanism to make up for the mismanagement of our state funds and a revenue source that they think that they can befool the citizens of our state into supporting.
But, Rob, what about the argument that all the other New England states have tolls and Connecticut doesn't, and that puts Connecticut at a financial disadvantage? And as you know, sometime over the next 20 to 100 years, they anticipate that everybody will switch over to electric cars, and then this source of revenue from the gas tax would dry up. Is that not a legitimate argument?
I don't think so, no. I heard Representative Guerrero say that we were all going to be driving electric cars in 10 years, and I just don't think that that's a reality. And as you pointed out, a lot of the you can get into the minutia of why tolls are bad, and I'm more than happy to do that because while you and your listeners and some of your guests have covered a lot of it, there are many, many other things even beyond what has been talked about. But the first thing is that we lose a great deal of federal funds the moment you start talking about tolls. And even if we put in legislation to begin the process of having tolls, it's going to be 2 or 3 years minimum before we have them, and we're going to start losing around $250 million per year in federal aid that we get from the federal government. So we're starting in the hole. And
wait, so if it were
really
passed, you mean, if it were passed, there would be a lead time of 3 years maybe to get the tolls implemented, but on day one that it became law, then the penalty from the feds would start?
Right. There is a debate about exactly when the clock starts ticking that we have tolls and whether or not we would lose our federal funds on the very first day that we enact it. And in fact, most of the bills that are being discussed are designed to actually take the legislature out of the equation. In other words, what they want to do is they want to pass a bill that essentially sets up another state agency,
yes.
another decision-making
and then
body.
The agency is empowered to do it all. Oh, how wonderful. Hang on, Rob. Hold on, Rob. Rob Sampson is with us, representative from Wolcott. He's running for state senate. He's a Republican, head of the conservative caucus. And we'll take some calls coming up as well. 860-522-9842. Representative Rob Sampson with us. He's a conservative. There aren't many, even amongst Republicans in the world, there aren't necessarily that many who are conservatives, like who believe in the Constitution and use those underlying principles from which to extract policy ideas. But Rob is one of those guys. So I'd love to talk to him because he has this very rational mind and understands how beautiful what the founders envisioned was and how sad it is that we pay so little heed to that. So thank you for being here, Rob.
It is certainly my pleasure, and thank you for saying all that.
And I hope you're in that Senate soon, and I hope that Joe Markley is the next lieutenant governor. Boy, oh boy, what a possibility that is for the state. I love it. So what else do you want us to know about the toll proposal before we take some calls? You'll take some calls with us, won't you?
I would be delighted to take some calls. I'll just say a couple of quick things that maybe haven't been mentioned about the tolls so far. I just mentioned that essentially the legislature is not even going to enact the tolls. We will be setting up some sort of state agency, and by we, I mean the people that vote for it, which I will not be among. And essentially that gets us off the hook no matter what they do, whether it's 50 cents a mile for tolls. Guess what? Your Democratic legislator who voted for it is going to be able to say, oh, well, I didn't do that. I didn't vote for that. Much like our state union contracts that happen to be negotiated by the executive branch and become law without a vote in the legislature. Our recent electric rate increase that was approved by PURA, which is another state agency given the authority to go ahead and make those decisions. And I'm not saying those are bad people, but they're also not accountable to the voters. And that's
it's a bad system, and it's anybody who would vote for that kind of structure is being anti-democratic and anti-taxpayer, and they're doing it to avoid responsibility for the decisions that come later so they can play dumb. It's awful, and it really it undoes representative government, the whole structure.
Of course. The amount of money we're talking about here for tolls is another thing. It's insignificant when you consider the amount of debt that we have and the deficit that will show up in the 19-20 budget cycle. We're looking at multiple billions of dollars in debt, and we're talking about money that's not even going to come in until after that's begun. And it's hundreds of millions at best, and I think that is an exaggerated figure because, think about this, Todd. You're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in the infrastructure to create this program, and you're also going to set up another bureaucracy, another state agency with more state employees and more pensions to run the toll system and collect the payments and send the bills out and track down people and so forth. How much money are we actually making on every dollar in tolls collected? I mean, are we making 10 cents on a dollar?
Yeah, I think my guess is that the place where where it's more deceptive is on the gross revenues that they're talking about, because they're projecting $700 million a year, and that's what New York State gets off of its toll roads. I have trouble, and they've got some very high tolls in New York. I have trouble imagining how Connecticut could generate that kind of money. I would guess it would be more like half that. Now, Len Fasano, the Senate leader who was on yesterday, said, the Senate Republican leader, said that they're basing this on a 10-cent per mile average collection, where the average for the country is 5 cents a mile. So, it sounds like pie in the sky stuff.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at the state DOT has this congestion pricing toll website, and you start reading some of the reports, some of the plans they have are to put 32 separate tolls on Route 84 between Danbury and Hartford, so 16 each way. Can you imagine somebody who commutes having to go through 16 of those cameras? And not to mention the cost, but also, the same issues that we had with the mileage tax that was spoke about over the last couple of years. Now you start to talk about privacy concerns. They're selling this to people on the idea that somehow we're going to get out-of-staters. That's the whole idea. Well, let some other people pay, some of that burden. Sure. I have to pay a toll every time I go to the thing is that's not what's going to happen. They're going to put these tolls everywhere. The federal government prohibits us from putting them just on the border, so they're going to be on 691 and on Route 15 and everywhere else where there is very, very little out-of-state traffic. What's funny is I read a study that showed that the best collection or the highest collection of out-of-state revenue for Connecticut is in the sales tax, which would cost absolutely nothing to increase the generation. You don't have to build tolls or anything. I'm not suggesting.
Yeah, but nobody's going to go along with that. We're talking with Rob Sampson, state representative running for Senate. Let's grab a call here, 860-522-9842. Mike hung up. Let's get Jeff then. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, how are you today?
Doing very well. Thank you for the call.
Well, I think I'm having a crummy connection here. I apologize.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just talk.
I have a solution to the whole problem. We have Daniel P. Malloy, our great governor, who's an amazing politician to get reelected with such a mess the government is in. So we declare Connecticut a sanctuary state. So we no longer have to pay federal income tax. We are going to go ahead and have a 15% flat tax on all Connecticut residents. And we'll just take care of ourselves and ignore the federal tax.
Jeff, I'm not sure what all that is about, but thank you for the call. It's good to hear from you. Rob, any of that you want to react to?
Thanks for saying that. I'm not really sure exactly, but I think he was trying to say that we ought to, alleviate ourselves of our obligations on the federal level, which hopefully are improving under the current president.
And then just making rules that are outside of the U.S. jurisdiction?
Who knows?
Which people are doing for, for other policies, so why can't you do it across the board? All right, Rob, 30 seconds. Anything else you want us to know before you go?
Yeah, I was just going to say, think about all the things that the Democrats have come up with that they want to use for revenue generation. Marijuana, tolls, casino gambling, there's more. But think about how regressive all of those taxes are, Todd. That is a sign that they actually understand that supply-side economics is a real thing, and that they have realized that they have damaged our economy so much that they have hurt the high-income earners that actually have the ability to leave the state so much that they are deciding to pick on the rest of us little people.
Pick on the little guy.
Yeah.
All right, Rob Sampson. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much, Todd. Take it easy.